What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another market update, this time for CGC 9.8 Key Issue Star Wars Comics. And in this video, I want to talk about the market more broadly as we go through these, because all comics are down right now. And whether that's a sign of even further declines, who knows? But some of these books, I think, have come down off of their price highs such that I would consider them. And not all of them, though. So we're going to do a thumbs up and thumbs down as we go through some of these. And some of these I think you can avoid for the short to intermediate term until prices come down even further. Some of them I think are probably worth picking up now at current prices. So let's dig right in. We're going to talk about buy it nows as well as auctions and show you some of the differences also for some of these, where if you're patient and you're not in a big rush to get a book, but there's a specific book that you're looking for, there's going to be more and more panic sellers, so to speak, because a lot of sellers are sitting on a ton of books. And if they're worried about the market declining any further, you might see more auctions pop up. So let's go ahead and dig right into some really interesting books. We're going to start kind of later books. And when I say later, I mean vintage style books, the original run, all the way to more modern releases. And the first one I want to start with is Star Wars number 16. This is the first appearance of the bounty hunter, Bylert Valance. This is a book I've got on my short list of one I want. And, you know, historically, over the last 5 or 6 months, this has been going between 400 and 450. And this is a really nice example. It's the first appearance of Valance, and it's a great cover. I love it in the early Star Wars comics where they called them the Star Warriors. It's just kind of like, it has a very 1970s vibe to it. And this whole cover, his look, everything about him has a 1970s vibe. I just love it. It's got Jackson on there, as well as kind of the early depictions of the heroes, Han Solo, Luke, C-3PO, and R2-D2. You can just see how 70s it looks. The book is from 1978, so it's just a great book. And like I said, it has been historically in that 450 range or more. And right now it's at 403. I do think that there's room for this book to come down even further. I think you might see 350-ish. The reason this book has picked up a little bit is because he has appeared recently in a lot of the War of the Bounty Hunter books, the Star Wars Bounty Hunter series. There's 2 different series there. And, you know, I think that because he's kind of in modern comics right now, that there are people out there saying, I wonder what his first appearance book is. And then they find it, and they're bidding it up right now. So I think with a little bit of patience, maybe towards this fall, you might see this book drop even further. This one, again, sold for $403 plus $21 shipping in an auction. But keep in mind, this is a 1978 book. So, you know, there's not a ton of 9.8s out there, but they do come up every so often, every few months in an auction. Buy it nows are always going to be way too high. So, again, wait for an auction on that one. The next one is another book I've talked about in the past that's on my short list, and it's dropping like a rock, and that is Obi-Wan's kind of first solo story. It's a flashback story, and that's Star Wars number 24. This is from June of 1979. So it's a pretty decent cover, not a great cover of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I do like it. And I think that it's just kind of a nice piece of collecting history. It certainly had a little bit of a run-up during the Obi-Wan series, but now that that's come and gone, I can expect this book to also drop maybe a little bit further. Closer to $200 would be my number. But, you know, again, it all depends on how anxious you are on the book. But that one sold for $224.72 plus $21 shipping. I think both of those prices are pretty high, but they look to be in pretty impeccable condition, no Newton rings and things like that. More on that in a second here, but those are 2 books to keep on the back list. Here is one that's on my short list that I'm getting pretty close to wanting to buy it, and I did bid on one. It went a little bit too high for me. This was not the one I bid on, but this one is Star Wars number 42, obviously the first appearance of Yoda as well as Boba Fett, the first cameos of some of the other bounty hunters, Bosk, Dengar, who obviously on the cover, IG-88, it's all their first cameo appearances. Great book, very iconic. And, you know, during the book of Boba Fett earlier this year, this book got as high as $3,000, maybe even as high as $3,500 for a direct edition. The newsstand editions were stratospheric, just absolutely crazy. Now they've come back down a little bit, now that the book of Boba Fett has kind of had its lukewarm reception, and people are moving on to other things. This one sold for $2,099. I saw another one that I bid on that sold for about $19 or $2,000. I was a little bit short. I was probably about $100 short on my bid, but I think now's a really good time to buy this book. So if you're looking for this one in a 9.8 grade, my gut tells me $1,800 to $2,000 is probably going to get it done over the next 5 to 6 months. But it's on my short list. I plan on getting it. I don't know when, but I've got to put the money together for it. I've spent a lot on some mint on card stuff, but this is just a fantastic book. And if you're a Star Wars comic book collector in a high grade like this, like I am, I think it's kind of a must-have book along with Star Wars #1. But this is one where I give it a thumbs up. I would definitely look to pick this if you're looking for a 9.8 grade or any other grade. Now's probably a pretty good time because prices have come way back down, way back down. And then this one is at auction. I think by the time I actually release this video, the auction will have come and gone. But going back to what I talked about with Newton rings, I got really, really excited when I saw this one at auction. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bid on this. I'm definitely going to get it. And then I saw that it's got Newton rings. And for those of you who are fairly new to graded comics, what are Newton rings? Well, if you look to the right of Boba Fett right there, you can see kind of an oily, kind of oil spill kind of thing going on. And that's where the inner liner that holds the comic is pressed up against the actual slab, the case, the acrylic case. And all around Boba Fett, to the left and to the right, all the way down his leg there, you can see all of that. And those are Newton rings. And it just kind of makes the book look kind of weird. And it doesn't present well. I've certainly got a number of examples, both recently graded as well as older grades, that have these Newton rings. But it's just because this is a white background, it really shows the Newton ring. So I'm not going to bid on this one, unfortunately. But it's got 39 watchers. The bids right now are at $338. Again, I think by the time this sells, I bet it sells for between $1,700 and $1,900. But I figure if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I'd rather get one that's been encased properly. And it's an unfortunate problem with some CGC cases where they get these Newton rings. And it's because they use the wrong size acrylic case with the wrong size book. So if it's a book that is maybe a little bit bigger than they expect and they put it in there, that liner rubs up against the case, and it's just something that I know that they can fix it, because I've had cases where this has been a problem. I've sent them back into CGC to be reholdered, and they come back fine without any Newton rings. So they're aware of the problem, but they still, because of their, it might be an employee issue using the wrong size cases or the wrong size liner. I don't know. But it continues to happen even with freshly graded books. The other thing that I don't like about this one is that it's off-white to white pages, which I'd prefer to have a white pages if I'm going to spend that money. So it may not even hit the numbers I was talking about earlier. It might hit closer to $1,200 to $1,500. I don't know. I've got it on my watch list just to see what it sells at, but it's off-white to white pages, and it's got Newton rings. It's certainly not going to sell anywhere close to where this book sold for, where it didn't appear to have any Newton rings, and it was white pages. So that was a $2,000 number. So just, you got to look really closely at these books when you're buying them. And it doesn't matter, again, if they're modern books or if they're vintage books. It can happen with anything, any book these days with CGC slabs. And it's a problem that is fixable. And it doesn't happen with CBCS books. So, maybe that's a sign that CGC needs to get their act together. I don't know. But really keep an eye for those Newton rings. Here's another one that's on my list. This is the first appearance of Durge, the Bounty Hunter, Star Wars Republic number 51. This is a Dark Horse comic, and this is from 2003, it looks like. 2003, March 2003. It's a great cover. It's got Anakin and Obi-Wan, kind of Clone Wars era with Graveyard Moon written on there. It's just a great book. Now, it doesn't have Durge on the cover, unfortunately, and he does show up in kind of some later issues. Star Wars Republic number 52 has Durge, as well as Ahsoka's Ventures on there. That's another good book I'd like to have. But 51 and 52 are definitely on my short list, and this one sold for a great price, $148.50 plus $10 shipping. That's a good price, and I think I give this one the thumbs up to pick this up now. If you like Durge, the Bounty Hunter, I personally love him. I think he's a really cool character, and I think he's got long-term potential. So be on the lookout for that one, because that price is really good, bare bones number. Another one that I give the thumbs up to pick up right now, and that's Star Wars Jedi Mace Window. This got no number. This is a one-shot. This is the first appearance of Ahsoka Ventress in comics. pretty decent cover. You know, I kind of like it. It's got Samuel L. Jackson in a close-up there. And, you know, this book had been selling for 600 plus for the longest time. This one sold in an auction on July 26th for $367. That is like almost half price of where this book has been selling, 600 to 650. So if you are wanting Asajj Ventress's first comic book appearance, this is the one to get, and now's the time to get it. I think that's a good buying opportunity right now. Conversely, here's one that sold in a buy it now situation for $400, free shipping. So again, you know, in an auction, you're going to pick it up for slightly cheaper, but either one of those prices really are pretty good. And, you know, that gives you a nice price range of about $360 up to about $400 right now, where this book has been historically selling in recent times here. I'm not talking about last year. I'm talking about this year, $600 or more. But it's been dropping, and I think it's a good one to pick up. Another one that's on my list is Star Wars Tales number 23. This is the first cameo appearance of Darth Revan and Darth Malak. I've got Darth Revan's origin book, which I believe is Knights of the Old Republic 42, and also it's also the origin. So which I think the origin is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 42, and then I've also got his first appearance comic, which is Knights of the Old Republic number 9. So I want to correct myself there, but this is his first cameo appearance, Darth Revan's first cameo appearance. I think Revan is going to make a live action appearance. I don't know when, but there's been heavy rumors, and this is kind of another, you know, secondary key related to Revan and Darth Malak that you want to take a look at. This one sold at auction for $162.50. The seller did disclose that this one had Newton rings. So you can probably pay closer to $200 or more for this book without Newton rings, but I don't know. $162.50 is a pretty good deal. And there's also an alternate cover that's a photo cover variant. I used to think that the photo cover variant, which has Wedge Antilles on it also, was more expensive. That's not the case. The photo variant cover goes for more money because there are less of them in the 9.8 grade on the CGC census. So either the photo cover or the art cover, which is what this one looks like. They're both great covers. They certainly don't have Revan and Malak on the cover, but if you are fans of those two characters, these are good secondary keys to pick up. And you know, I think for the photo cover variant, you're looking at closer to $300 to $350. And again, for this painted cover variant, $162.50, Newton rings or not, that's a really low price given recent sales. Another one I'd probably stay away from would be Clone Wars number 1. I've got this one on my list. I'd love to get it, but now's not a good time, obviously, with the Ahsoka kind of media machine ramping up. They just, I think, finished the filming for the Ahsoka series for Disney Plus, so you can expect a lot more highlights and interviews and things like that, and that's going to drive the price even higher. And while this book has come down because of the general malaise of the comic book market, it had been kind of 3,000-ish. It's now selling anywhere from 2,200, which I did see a recent sale. This one sold for $24.50. This one sold for $22.24. So if you have to have it now, it's selling for about $2,200 to $2,400. I think it's going to come sub $2,000 this time next year. I hope I'm right, because I want to get this book. I think it's a great book. There's about, I don't know what the exact number is, maybe 200 or so in the 9.8 grade. It's kind of an iconic cover with Anakin holding a young Ahsoka on the cover, and it's kind of a must-have book for me. I'm going to have to get it, but I'm going to try and wait until next year, and hopefully prices are kind of sub $2,000. So I would stay away from that one right now, but if you are looking for it, that's kind of the general price range, $2,200 to $2,400 on eBay. Conversely, I think this book is one to pick up. I really do. There's not many of these in the CGC 9.8. That's Clone Wars number 7. And that is the first appearance of Clone Commander White. So what? I don't particularly care about that first appearance. The reason I want it is because Dave Filoni was actually the cover artist on this one. And I think we're going to look back at Dave Filoni 20 years from now as kind of the new godfather for the Star Wars series. He's kind of saved Star Wars in my mind since Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm. And because this is, to my knowledge, his only comic book cover, this is going to have long-term collecting appeal. And like I said, there's not many of these. There's less than 30 of these in a 9.8 grade. And I was going to bid on this one, and I got distracted. I was tied up with kid duty, so I couldn't pick it up. It sold at 8:19 p.m., and I was right in the middle of kid duty, like getting them ready for bed and all that kind of stuff. It sold for $126.50. I think that is a great deal. Whoever got this book, congratulations, because I really think that having Dave Filoni's only, I believe this is his only comic book cover, and I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. But to have that piece of history, again, 20 years from now, how are we gonna view Dave Filoni? You know, I think that he's gonna have this kind of almost mystic quality with Star Wars fans, you know, assuming he can kind of continue to salvage some of the missteps that Disney has had with the Star Wars franchise. Obviously, you got Ahsoka and The Mandalorian, but what else is he going to create? He's a young guy, really. What else is he going to create in the next 20 years? And it gives you hope that this, you know, that this brand is going to continue to grow and reel in new fans, reel in the younger generation with a lot of this awesome content he's creating. So I think this book is one of those kind of secondary books, secondary keys within the Star Wars, you know, Dark Horse run for Clone Wars that, you know, if I'm going to pick 2 Clone Wars books that I want to get right now, it would be Clone Wars #1, obviously, with Ahsoka's first appearance and Captain Rex's first appearance. And then this one. And this is a great buy. If I see another one that comes up at auction, I'm going to bid on it. And I'd be willing to spend a lot more money than $126.50. I'd probably go up to $200 on that. I think that's a great book. And, you know, it's just kind of cool to have some artwork by Dave Filoni. So that's one to look out for, I think. Next up, let's go back to the first appearance of Black Chrysantan. You know, again, this one hit $450 when he first showed up in the Book of Boba Fett. This one just sold for $127.50. $127.50. It's a great cover. I'm still putting it off. I don't know why. I mean, at $127.50 is probably worth picking up now. That's a good solid 40% less than what this book was selling for prior to him showing up in the Book of Boba Fett. And now that he's actually in there, CGC started to label this book as the first appearance of Black Chrysantan. I think it's worth having in your collection at this price point. $100 to $125, $130-ish. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. I think I'd pay that. It's a great cover. And, you know, I'm a Darth Vader fan anyway. So, I mean, this is just an awesome, awesome cover. And there are a number of different printings for this book. I mean, you can pick up the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th prints for even less than this, I think. You know, so I would look at it now. You know, if you got to have it, it's on the back burner for me. It's not high priority, but I think if you want it, this is the time to get it. Speaking of Black Chrysantan, let's talk about one of her partners in crime in a lot of her comic book series, and that is Dr. Aphra. Dr. Aphra's book has been on a roller coaster. I just submitted a draft article for Go Collect that I'm sure I'll cover on my channel at some point, where I talk about this book as well as a few others. And I think that now's probably a good time to pick this book up if you are looking to get it. $295 for a CGC 9.8 for the standard cover appearance of and first full comic book appearance of Dr. Aphra, BT-1, and 000, her 2 droids. That's a good deal. That's a really good deal. There are a lot of them on the census, and I think that's what's holding the price back right now. Combined with the general fall in prices, combined with the fact that she didn't show up in the Book of Boba Fett like everyone expected, this book hit a high during the Book of Boba Fett of $550. Now it's selling for $300. Now's a good time to get it. I think I'm probably leaning towards picking up another copy. I've got the 1st and 2nd print in a 9.8. I think at this price point, I'm leaning towards picking up another copy. So, you know, this is the first print, but there's other printings. This one sold for $310, so that gives you a nice tight price range, $295 to $310. That's a good buy right now. And then the second print, this is the second print, which I also have. This one sold for $172.50 plus $16 shipping in an auction. That is a screaming buy. There are less of these in the 9.8 grade than the first print, and it's also a more difficult 9.8 to get, I believe. I could be wrong on that from a ratios perspective, but $172.50 for a second print, first appearance of Dr. Aphra. That is a screaming buy, and I think if you're looking to get her first appearance comic, now's the time to do it, because I'm telling you, I'm probably going to be saying the same thing in 2025. I'm telling you that Dr. Aphra is coming to Disney Plus content or her own movie at some point. It's just a no-brainer, and I really think she's designed perfectly for episodic content. She's always looking for old Sith relics and getting into misadventures with, you know, foils like Darth Vader or some of these other kind of archaeologists that are competing for the same Sith relics. That's what's going on right now in her current series of comics. And it's just tailor-made for episodic content. You pick a Sith relic, you have a season on that Sith relic, or you have an episode on that Sith relic. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. She's a kind of an anti-hero. She's a female, so it kind of checks the box for, you know, diversity, as Disney likes to focus on these days. I really think that she is going to be a major star if Disney and Lucasfilm can do her character justice within live action content, because the character is awesome. I mean, she's like part Indiana Jones, part Han Solo. She works in the gray area. She's not a goody two shoes at all. She's a very much a gray area kind of, you know, anti-hero. And I just love her as a character. I just think she's going to show up. So if you want her first appearance comic, I wouldn't get it. If you're going to buy a graded example, don't get anything other than a 9.8, because there's so many of them out there. A lower grade book is never going to go anywhere. A high grade book will. I really do. I think if she shows up at some point in a show, you can double this price at a minimum. It already hit $550 when she was rumored to come into the Book of Boba Fett. So what if she actually shows up? I mean, this book is going to go through the roof. It'll probably triple. It'll probably hit closer to $1,000. So I would get it now while it's cheap. This one sold for $216. This is the second print again. So $172 and $216 are two recent sales for the second print. That gives you a nice tight price range. I believe I paid $220 for my second print 9.8. So that gives you a good idea. Going back to Kanan, for example, I think Kanan's books have really flatlined, and I don't know why, because it's already been heavily rumored that some of the other characters from the Rebels team are going to show up. We already know Sabine Wren is going to show up. We already know that Ezra Bridger is going to show up. But now they're talking about Chopper and Zeb Aurelius showing up. So you got the Rebels team coming, and the book has flatlined. And I don't know why, because it's a really great book. This is the first cameo that sold for $250. The first full appearance is Kanan number 6. That book was trading very regularly for $600. Now it's selling for $431 in this auction. This one is signed by the cast, by the Rebels voice cast. This one sold for $5,000. So clearly there's people out there that still believe in it. I wouldn't pay this personally, but it does have the entire Rebels voice cast signed on the book. What an incredible item. So I would look at that one now, because it's come way back down. Another book that's on my short list that I want to get is Force Awakens Adaptation number 1, the Neil Adams cover. If you're going to get this book, get the Neil Adams cover. He just passed, so rest in peace, Neil Adams. But this is just an iconic cover, and I've talked about it at length in the past. This one sold for $113 in an auction. I wanted to bid so bad on this because I've got Rogue One Adaptation number 1. I've got Han Solo Adaptation number 1. I would love to get Force Awakens Adaptation number 1. I just don't have it yet. So that's the easiest one of the bunch to get, and the cheapest of the bunch. Speaking of Solo Adaptation number 1, this is the 1-in-25 ratio variant. And this sold for an absolute bargain at auction on July 24th, $222 on 14 bids. This book has flatlined because Emilia Clarke is she's had some health issues, so she's dealing with some of that stuff. She had an aneurysm or something, so she's kind of on the back burner in terms of acting. So I don't know if Kira, who makes her first appearance in this book, will be showing up anytime soon, but this is the 1-in-25 ratio variant, and this sold at auction for $222. That is a steal of a deal, whoever got that one. Finally, I wanted to show Thrawn number 1. I would look at Thrawn number 1, maybe not the signature series, because this price was way too high. But the non-signed version of this book in a 9.8 grade sells for around $200 right now. That's probably a good book to pick up if you can't afford Heir to the Empire number 1, which is his first comic book appearance, Thrawn's first comic book appearance. But $5.99 was the sales price on this one. This is signed by Timothy Zahn, who obviously had that recent release of novels that focuses on Thrawn's origin story and his adventures within the Empire. But I love this book. I've got this one in 9.8 grade. I would pick it up around $200, $225-ish. $600 is too much for me just to have it autographed by Timothy Zahn, but pretty awesome item to see. Anyway, just some ideas, some yay or nay in terms of what I think are books that are going to drop in price even more versus books that have dropped so much in price that I would consider. I think that if you're going to pick one book right now in the modern era, I would look at this one. I would look at Dr. Aphra's first appearance, which is Darth Vader number 3 from 2015. I think that's a no-brainer buy right now. This one is also a no-brainer buy. Star Wars: The Clone Wars #7. Dave Filoni's artwork is on that cover. Great cover. 126.50. If you happen to be watching this and you were the one who bought that, that was an absolute bargain. I think that book is going to triple in value very, very soon, because people are going to realize that this is Dave Filoni artwork. Dave Filoni is basically the savior of the Star Wars franchise, and this has got a really low CGC 9.8 census number. So congrats on that, whoever picked it up. That's all I really had. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.